I like to say that I kept forgetting to stop dancing. We are pregnant of possibilities, and we're not aware of them. I am just doing the grown-up version of what I did when I was 8. I'm organizing the stuff. I'm communicating it, so I'm not only doing it for myself. I'm sharing it with other people, but I'm still very, very connected. The interests I used to have as children.
Hey, and welcome to the Sachen machen podcast. I'm your host Simon, and today's talk is with Mariana Hilgert. Her mission is to connect people to their own source of creativity, to discover their own resourcefulness for dancing, for writing poetry, for creativity. In this conversation, we dive into topics as how to start a practice, why it's good to start with joy, and how do you keep feeding the flame. We talk about dancing, we talk about creativity. I wish you a lot of fun, and now let's dive into it. What's your favorite kind of ice cream?
Easy start. Not so easy. I love stracciatella.
Yeah.
The chocolate vanilla one, but I actually cannot eat it because I have some lactose issues. So my second favorite one, which is actually my first because I end up eating it always, is lemon.
Good choice. If you would come into a physical combat with somebody and you have a vegetable you can use to defend yourself, which vegetable would you choose and why?
A vegetable. Okay, I was thinking of like a watermelon, but it's a fruit. It wouldn't be practical, but I think it would be like really I would solve all my problems if I could just throw a watermelon at someone. But a vegetable, maybe just a basic zucchini, like some sword moves. In the end, if it breaks, then I can just pick the stuff from the floor and throw it at the enemy.
You have a little dog, or not so little dog anymore, right?
Yeah.
What if your dog would be to describe you or a daily day of you, what would your dog tell me?
Why does she stare so much at the screen? So probably like this would be one of the things she would say. I think the other thing it would be probably like, why are you not sleeping 15, 18 hours a day like I am? I think she would say like, it's fun to spend time with you too. We go out for walks. So we have a good time.
She would be wondering a bit that, okay, she's looking so much at those screens, but at the same time, her work is movement and dance and creativity.
Yeah.
And
what is she doing?
I've met Mariana, it's actually now over 4 years ago at the movement teacher training in Berlin, where she managed to bring me closer the first time in many, many years, the feeling and the act of dancing. And over the years, we had quite some contact, also over several studies with the joy study and the anxiety study. So we learned a lot together, and I continued learning from you. And I think we got to inspire each other. How would you describe your work? Because I think you have a really unique or special take on dancing and movement that is not to be found. And then there's some poetry in it and some creativity. So how do you describe your work?
I find it really nice that you recall that memory of the time we met. I don't really remember the first class that I taught where you were joining, but I remember that you, I think you were maybe one of the few people who would just jump into the ideas very easily without a lot of resistance. Because resistance is a part of this work, right?
And
so
maybe to elaborate shortly on that, even you have to imagine that there's a room of 10 to 12 males who maybe haven't danced at all in their life, or just have boogied around a bit in the club trying to look cool or trying to impress some girls, but not really experience or feeling the dancing, and then maybe hiding themselves behind like big muscles or some impressive moves or whatever, calisthenics moves. And then you come into the play and you say, oh no, we do this minimal, viable rhythm thing. One of the first memories is we had to dance together and there was an octopus in the door going to a party, and that was mind-blowing to me.
Yeah, cool that you remember. This things are supposed to be stuck in our memories. In this big movement topic, dance it's usually not, very often not seen as a practice itself, but it appears like elements of dance appear in different parts of the practice. So I think having a moment to only look into dance as a specific practice and not as a part of this general thing, because dance was my specific practice for many years. This was the only thing I was spending time with. Since I am a little child, I started dancing when I was, I don't know, like 5, 6 years. I have my first memories of going to a dance class, but I have a lot of memories where I'm not in a dance class, where I'm just, dancing by myself. I'm creating stuff in the living room. I am dancing with my neighbor, sometimes creating choreographies. Every Christmas I would go to my great parents and I think my cousin would say I would oblige them to dance. I would say I invited them to dance with a lot. Dance is just a big part of my life. It was just a natural interest that I had growing up. And I was very lucky that I could keep on cultivating this interest through time. So as I say, I like to say that I kept forgetting to stop dancing. Because this is something that happens when you grow up. It just becomes less important. So other things, they take up the space that dance or like a hobby had. And for me, dance just stayed and I forgot to stop. So, and just to come to your question, like what is how I see and what is my take on dance, I think dance became like this very stable of expression in my life. But it was not the only one. I always loved to write and I always loved to read. Yesterday I was in the park with Philip, my partner, and Kaju, and I was reading a book, and I was so into this book that I think we spent 2 hours in this park. I had some neck pain because I injured my neck, and I didn't realize the pain. I didn't really realize what Kaju was doing. I was just so sucked into this book. So I think this is also, I think I can get very, maybe obsessed is one word, but I'm just like very into certain things like reading and writing and dancing. And I think they all came together at a certain point in my life. I realized they were sort of connected because for a long time I was just, I'm going to the dance class in the dance school, and then I was reading, and then I was writing in the university or at school. So they were very like at school you have like these different subjects, yeah. So you have the math class and geography, and I think this was my creative work for a long time. And at some point I realized they have their specificities, but they are sharing a lot of their DNA. They're sharing a lot. There's a lot of connection between them, and I think this is what, in the end, became my work. So this is why I say I work with creativity and not only with dancing, or with writing. But yeah, I think I work in the intersection between different subjects that connect through this possibility of influencing each other, of growing each other's perspective. So this is why when I teach and I talk about the octopus and the door, it comes also from spending time observing connection, like looking at an octopus, and then I have this association. This is actually a very nice metaphor to how people can move, very freely, and then the door is the opposite of it, and this can become an exercise. So this is, I think in the end, the one skill that I think this connection between subjects gave me was the ability to make associations. This is very helpful for my work. Like I can, instead of saying, let's move our spine, I can say, let's move like an octopus. And this can be a way for people to enter into this in a more playful way, in a more relaxed way. So they are not so stuck into, where is my spine? Where is my head? But they're like, okay, the octopus, there is an image. The image becomes a movement, and then they can start.
And at the same time, making your work life a lot harder like this, because it's always when you work at the intersection, it's a lot harder to explain people.
Yeah.
It's not like, okay, I'm helping people write, I'm helping people dance. It's like, okay, how do these things go together?
Yeah.
And at the same time, it's what makes you feel alive and gives you a lot of meaning, right?
I think that the issue of communicating what we do, even if you say, like, I help people through dance, which is like something that sounds quite clear, it's not clear at all, because I'm not explaining what I mean with helping. What is it that I mean with dance? So I think with all, like this intersection work, it makes it complicated, but in the end, our communication is fragmented, everything is fragmented. Even if I tell you in this podcast, I do this work, and I have a clear image of what I'm doing, and you even join my workshops and we have trained together, still you have a fragmented version of my work. And I think this is the issue that we have to deal with, is that our identity and our work identity is always going to be fragmented. Even if people work with us for like 10 years, 20 years, I think, you never, because I also don't know, I don't know the whole identity of my work. I'm sort of discovering on the go. So, and this is also so cool. This is like this space is like this, where we can talk and I can reflect also. This is so nice because it's a chance to understand or experience the soul of the work in a way,
We are talking here about it on a cognitive level, but what it really is about is to feel it and to participate in it. And that's a totally different thing. Would you have guessed 5 years before where you are now?
I was talking to Philip recently, and we were talking about how connected our work is to the interests that we had as children. I said I am just doing the grown-up version of what I did when I was 8. I'm organizing the stuff, I'm communicating it, so I'm not only doing it for myself, I'm sharing it with other people, and of course, getting paid for my work. So, but I'm still very, very connected to the work I used to do, the interests I used to have as children.
There's a funny story. Last year when I worked with a bunch of kids, with a school class, and we played some games like Capture the Flag and Saving the Monkey Baby. And then one kid came to me and asked me if this is my hobby or my job. And I was really honored by that question. That, okay, it relates a lot to what you were saying, that a lot of the interests I did as a kid now have become my job, but you do it in an adult way.
Yeah.
So you have to organize and spread it to other people and make it more applicable, and also think about the theory behind things and how communicate it. But basically it's what I love to do as a child too. And with a big cognitive hunger also to understand things, which adds into it, makes it even better than as a child, I believe.
But it's interesting, right? Because now you spent all those years as a child getting experience. So you didn't like, as 5-year-old, you were like, let me read some books about movement and exploration and going out into the world. You were experiencing a lot of things. So, and I think this is an important gap when people like come to a class and they want to know, why should I do this? Why is it important? Why should I learn dancing, or why should I start moving in a way that is not like, I don't know, linear, or how I thought movement happens in the fitness, in the gym and stuff. And
What
I think
do you answer them?
Yeah, you cannot give them an answer, because I mean, you can of course make up an answer, but I think the point is you need to experience it first. You need to experience it for some time before you then cognitively start to understand what's going on. I mean, of course you can enter from any way, but I think this is how we developed, as children. We were like experiencing stuff, and then we enter with the cognitive aspect later on. And I think there is a reason for that.
And some of us, I also think, have to do like a detour over the cognitive, that we need to understand it to then forget it again. Right? To zoom out, understand it, everything, or everything, whatever everything is, and then dive into there, because the thing is to get into the body and not to understand it in the head, but to embody it, to live it, to connect it to other life areas, like you said, right? To have those associations, to have like all those practices in your life woven together as one big whole coherent thing, and not just individual puzzle pieces that don't fit together. It's not about that, but to create or at least that's how I see it, to create a coherent whole garden of practices in life that supports each other. So when people come to dance, how do you tackle the resistance in the beginning?
In general, I assume that people might feel resistance, but I also know that I don't feel resistance. And through the years, I have realized how much this freedom that I have, because I have gone through many years of experiencing dance and going through different phases. So I think when I go and teach a class, I have this access to this space where I am very enthusiastic and very, like I can dance, I can take you all with me in my enthusiasm. And I think this is quite an interesting phenomenon. I didn't really realize it much, but I would, after classes, I would realize that people would come to me and say, oh, I never thought I could dance in the park, or like move like a cucumber on the floor, like this kind of things. And so I think there is resistance, but I think there is also enthusiasm. Like I have enthusiasm, and you have to see what's in the room, If there's only resistance in the room, it's hard, but sometimes then you have like Ximons who are also enthusiastic. So, sometimes I get into the room and there is, I am not so enthusiastic for whatever reason, and then it's a bit more challenging, or I get into the room and then I am much more in my head. Like I'm thinking like, okay, now how can I describe these things in a way that is not super crazy? Like I remember I was teaching one trainer certification with Joseph, with movement trainer certification, and then I wanted to talk about the hips and the certain movement pattern in the hips. And I was just like, I was trying to explain this with like this hip words, like, or like the pelvis and the posterior and the turtle, and then you go into this transversal movement, and then it was like, yeah, Shakira, Okay.
Hips don't lie.
Yeah, imagine Shakira moving. Yeah, just imagine, and I put this Shakira song, and then I connected to something that is very, I think, very in mine also, is that a certain way of thinking. It just helps me if I am not only connected to this research, to the research mode, to the let's explain this with these words, but also to this more playful and imagetic approach. So I'm using my imagination, and I'm trusting that their imagination will also help them to understand this movement. So I don't even remember which question you asked me. What happens with resistance? So yeah, I think one of the things that helps is, of course, the enthusiasm, what is in the room, noticing that if other people are also open and enthusiastic, and if and then we can sort of catch up, or the other people, the people who have more resistance can sort of come into the enthusiasm boat, but also using things that, like imagination, I think starting with things that are easy, starting with things that create joy, the feeling of joy can be a way to deal with the initial resistance. So it's not so serious, so it's not about getting it right, yeah, getting it right. This is like the idea that people need to get it right. This is such a big block, such a big resistance in the beginning. So entering through a more playful door, you know, like, yeah, things that are just gonna make you laugh and a bit like a joke.
I once talked to Kai Koch about a similar topic, and he said to me one sentence that stuck with me, and that was, yeah, get their feet wet and their hands dirty as soon as possible. And I tried to translate it in many areas. So that's one approach to do it, like, okay, throw them into the water, or like slowly invite them step by step, that they don't even realize what they're doing, and that, yeah, the step between each step is so small that they don't realize, okay, in the end they're dancing like octopuses indoors. Or okay, you start with shoulder taps when you go to play fighting or roughhousing, and in the end you're like fighting for a pearl that got stolen by like a clam, and you have to get the pearl out, and you're rolling around the ground, and people don't realize even they are roughhousing. But yeah, to get over that fear of embarrassment in the beginning is a big one for me. One of my favorite new games I learned last year it's called Scream and Run. And I got it from a bunch of teenagers or young adults, where I saw it and I was like, this is genius. And you line everybody up at a line, and then the goal is to run as far as possible with one breath you have. So one after another runs as far as they can with just one breath, and they have to scream as loud as they can while doing this. So you do it on an open field or so.
Cool.
And I've did it with multiple groups this year, and it, on the one hand, it's so releasing for so many people to just scream and run, and on the other hand, there's nothing afterwards that's embarrassing anymore, because you've already screamed out your lungs and made all kind of funny noises in front of each other. So we ticked that box.
Oh wow, that's beautiful. You need to create a space where the experience is in the center and not, at least in the beginning, you know, that people can experience something that, yeah, that feels relief, they can release the stress, or like getting them into this laughing mode. They get a bit more relaxed, and then they will find their way into it. And also letting go as a facilitator, as a teacher, of the idea that people have to feel a specific way, you know. I don't need this feedback. Like, if people are not smiling, it's okay. I don't have to save them from their own process, you know. I don't have to do anything. So also trusting that the material, that the work will catch them in a good moment. And that maybe means coming to different workshops. Maybe it doesn't have to happen in the beginning, on the first day, yeah. So.
And what you mentioned is that, the enthusiasm. Oh, it's a difficult English word. Enthusiasm. The enthusiasm. Being on fire yourself makes it possible to light others up too, and to carry them with you with this wave of enthusiasm. But for that, it's also needed to be in a good energy yourself. So what do you do to fill up your own cup to be able to be in that state?
I think the room itself is, for me, it gives me a lot of energy. Like being in this room where I can share ideas, where I can share energy with other people. So this is one thing, like the moment itself gives me energy. I think everything else that I do, like dancing on a daily basis, you know, moving with in this creative approach, I think this is all like the small things that feed my energy for the moment of a class. And I remember I was teaching a regular class here in Berlin, and I was just not in a good mood. And then I was kind of like struggling because I wanted to be in a good mood to teach that class, because the class was very high energy. And then I had a conversation with a friend who was also joining the class, and she said something like, hey, but you can also teach a class just like you are, you know, do something like I don't have to extra change myself so I can teach the class. And then I realized through time that I can use the states that I am in, also maybe the low energy states, that I can also use them to be creative. So I can be also more quiet or more introvert or more relaxed, and then I can allow the dance or the topic that I'm teaching to be colored by that quality, by my inner state. For a long time, dance was my only practice, and urban dances, hip hop for most of my life. So this has a certain kind of energy. Yeah, it's very like upbeat, and you were like all the time. And then having this, like when I started practicing this more general movement approach with Joseph, and then my practice started to become more colorful. It was not only the high energy, but it was also the doing nothing, the strength training, which was like a lot of effort and also very hard in the beginning to find any kind of enjoyment in there. Mm-hmm. But also, even like staying with the lack of joy, staying in there for like, I just don't like it. But then I still stay here.
But what were reasons you stayed there if you were feeling a lack of joy there? What made you stay?
Because I was curious about this diversity. This made me very curious. I think I was slowly entering into this more diverse landscape of practices, and I realized that, there's something that is intriguing in there. Even the strong reaction of like, I don't like it. I mean, why? It's just so strong. And so sometimes, of course, I would just keep strength training. I would just like, nah, not going, But then I think this is the thing of experience, We start to experience these different things, and you start to realize that when I do strength training, then I feel in a different way. I feel different. Feel like, something happens with me. I remember I felt quite grounded after strength training sessions. So it's not like I feel joy, but I feel grounded. And I think there is like, in the family tree of joy, there are different emotions that are connected. But again, it's the room, I was spending time with people that I liked. I was having good conversations in the pauses. So I was having fun in other ways. And yeah, so the room, the space, this is great. But like it's just powerful, it has a lot of force. And then you enter in that force. It's like you are a piece of clothes, like you're just like a jacket, and then you go into the washing machine. You don't have to do anything. There is the force of the washing machine washing you. So
that's a beautiful image.
Actually, I think I'm not sure if it's a bit too weird, but yeah, you are just taken by this force of the space.
Yeah, I really like your reflection on how the strength training brings a certain groundedness. The last 1.5, 2 years, I've dived pretty intensely into contemporary dance and different kind of dance classes, styles, but mostly contemporary. And I was dancing 4 or 5 times a week to also with the goal of developing more this like fluid qualities and this water quality, not just in dance, but also in other areas of my life. But what I then realized, I was totally missing this groundedness, like this earthy quality that comes with strength training, for example, that I felt, okay, I feel things more deeply, and it's nice to feel those things, but it also tends to get overwhelming pretty quickly. So when I reintroduced and restarted strength training and feel this stability and this like, wow, I'm here, it felt much more sustainable.
Yeah, I think it's so interesting, right? Like that we become, as adults, it's like this thing when children, they tend not to like whole bread. Like this thing with a lot of seeds and very complex, and then the digestion is low and da-da-da. And I think I realized that through time, for me, I'm much more interested in this kind of whole bread approach. I like the things when they are more complex and they are easier to digest. I need to take some time to digest. I don't get the kick right away. Delay gratification, I think this is something that children have a harder time with. And we as adults, we can also do better. Well, not necessarily and not always, but I think this, you have the contemporary dance and these qualities, and then you have the strength training, and this is like, it makes it much more complex if you can explore yourself through these different qualities and not pick just one.
I think a goal is to widen the range of possibilities you can access and how you can move and see and interact with the world. And if you just go with what you always do and what comes easy to you, you stay pretty stuck in one way of acting and doing and moving.
Yeah, and at the same time, it gives you probably a lot of safety, right? Because if you only dance your whole life and then you are like the dancer, so you're very good at this thing. And then you get a lot of reward and validation because you were so good at this thing, or you just feel very comfortable there, But then when you start going into these other areas, you are just a beginner. You are just a normal human being who doesn't know how to do this. And then you don't get reward, because we don't get rewards for processes. Usually we get reward for outcomes. Doing the coordination, which I think is a classic when you enter into this movement world and you start like learning coordination patterns, and you're like, oh, your brain is frying. Or strength training for me was my personal coordination, because I was coming from dance, so coordination was much easier than doing a push-up. So yeah, it still feels good, because it feels good in a different way. The more subtle layers, like the groundedness, it's quieter.
It's not so shiny.
Yeah.
And I would be curious if it's just here, the dance bubble here, or if it's also your perception of some dance communities, that they have or some dancers really have a strong resistance against strength training or other kind of practices, because they don't spark this immediate joy or those many shiny sensations they might have when dancing to a lot of music, loud music in an open space with crazy moves. But they are missing out, in my opinion, on those subtle qualities of strength training, parkour, of other ways of interacting with the world, which would probably make their dance practice even more deeper and even more sustainable.
I don't understand why you wouldn't do strength training if you're dancing. Like if you are a teenager, like I was dancing, I was not like, oh, strength training, no, that's ridiculous. But as an adult, that's like very important. I would say it's very essential. I understand it can be boring, but it's actually, if you like, depends totally on how you see it and how you approach it and how you learn it. I mean, it's such a, like it's part, for me, it's a part of the creative movement practice is strength training as well. And it doesn't mean that I'm just doing like funny animal strength moves, It's just the approach, it's just the presence. It's like it's seeing this practice not through, and this is an insight that I had yesterday when I was teaching a class. You're not creating, you're not building a relationship through form. So I'm just doing this specific form of strength training, but I'm actually building a relationship through being in relation. That means I'm adapting, like in a relationship, you are an agent, you have agency. So things change. So I'm not, like if I'm thinking of my relationship with my dog, I'm not relating to my dog as a form, as a shape. I'm relating to it to her every day in a different way, because she changes her moods, I change my mood. So, it's not only about the form, but about relationship. And I think if you see strength training just as another partner that you can relate to.
And how can you be lovable and caring with this relationship and partner, right? To use strength training in a way that is building yourself up and not wearing yourself down. And that you don't do to punish yourself, but something to strengthen yourself. And how should that feel then? I had last year, I think my SI joint was a bit fucked up last winter or 2 winters ago. And then I thought, because I was trying to train really heavy and get really strong. And then I went to the gym and asked myself, how would it look like if I would train to heal and not just do some impressive numbers? And that thought stayed with me. This, and maybe the actual, and I have this realization over and over again over the years, but this, maybe the goal is like, how can I train in a really loving and caring way that sparks joy, that is interesting, which adds to the longevity and sustainability of it, and having fun in the process.
Soishi said this in her workshop, that we can practice not only to heal, but also to thrive.
Exactly.
So
yes.
this is such a beautiful way of seeing it.
And how would it look like if it is not to punish yourself? It is not something you just have to do, but something you're looking forward to. What is it, right? And there I found such a. Have you had an eye on the training journey of Will Brown on Instagram lately? He really got into arm wrestling. You know, something that sparked joy for him. I don't know where it came from. I just saw it. Was arm wrestling. So he stopped training all the calisthenic stuff and the impressive moves that he was doing for many years before, and started to train really specifically for arm wrestling, right? With like really specific grip exercises, biceps exercises, where I was really impressed to see this not sticking to something you've reached and then keeping all the achievements and all the goals, like you hoard them like a dragon, but to stay with what sparks you and what is interesting you, and where do you feel like, there do I need to go?
I think this is something that we can always go back to, right? Like, independent where we are in this journey of meeting ourselves through movement and thriving through movement, keeping an eye for what sparks joy. I'm also going to give a workshop in a few weeks. It's called Start with Joy. I think this is a great start, and it's something that you always can go back to, starting with joy and researching what that means for you. And at the same time, I think if you want to keep on going, because if you want to build consistency and like this long-term approach, or like play the long game, then I think it makes sense to go from spark to a flame. So you have to think not only as a spark, but you need to feed it. You need to feed it with practice, and give like stuff so that it can develop. And then you eventually can become this nice fire that is also changing the space around. You can become like a person who's giving this to other people. And I think this is what happens a lot, not everyone, but like people who also join the movement certification, or people who come to classes that I teach, like to my online program, The Creative Body. I see these are people they love to do it, but they are stuck in this spark, in the start mode. So they are always looking for something new. I'm going to do this, and then I get a new class, and then I go to a new class, and they never go into the flame mode, where they stay with something and they get to feed this flame so that it can grow.
My friend Martin said something really beautiful, that when you redo a practice, which like feeding the flame, you don't have the novelty of the beginning and the spark and the excitement, but you can deepen it more and more, right?
Yeah.
You can revisit, you can remember. So it's also good to do some workshops or some practices for a long time and not just always search for the new kick, which can be, I think, a common trap also in our bubble or scene. I've done this, now I go to the next one.
From the basics, things are going to happen. And I think that it's much simpler in a way. The spectacular culture that we live in, like where everything is so shiny, or generalizing, of course, but things are shiny, and the things that are shiny are the ones that are good. Wow, this person can do this kind of thing, so wow, they must be good. But doing something like a big movement, or like that is, it just it creates a lot of like, like this, wow, like this circus effect, this Cirque du Soleil effect. This is of course nice, but it doesn't say anything about the quality or the depth of the work.
There is a quote I really like. It's really brave to live an ordinary life. And to find the joy in the little things, like sitting on the terrace with your neighbors and a cup of coffee, or being able to have a slow morning, and those things instead of traveling to big retreats or seminars or workshops, but just like, it's nice. The sun is on the face, and I notice that the leaves are a bit more open today than yesterday. And this flower wasn't here yesterday. So there's just something about, those really little things.
Yeah. I like the word sometimes, Sometimes it's nice to do something different. Sometimes it's nice to go to the retreat or do whatever. But I think most of the times I need coffee on the balcony.
Another question. Do you go sometimes out to dance?
Sometimes.
Sometimes.
I used to do it much more. I think I have a much harder time to go out dancing in Germany than I had in Brazil. In Brazil was something that I would do very often. And it has to do with the music culture that I experienced so far in Berlin. Like going out, for clubs means going to a techno club. Sometimes I would go to hip hop clubs here, which is much more I would enjoy moving to much more. But techno music is just harder for me to. And in Brazil, because I was in this dance bubble of, like a popular music, like popular Brazilian music, like samba, forró. So I would go out for this kind of parties. Like on a Tuesday. It's not something that you go on the weekend. You just go on a Tuesday at 8, stay until 11.
And not you go to the club at 1 and then you start dancing till 4.
Yeah, I think I had a lot of frustration when I came to Berlin, and then I would go to these parties because it was just not really mine.
People often then differentiate their life between, okay, there they are non-moving, and then they go to the sport clubs where they are moving, or they go to say, okay, now I go to this event to dance, and then the rest of my life is not dancing, where I see your life and your approach much more that you dance a lot more with your life and in your life, that you don't have to outsource it to special events.
Yeah, dance is just not the thing that I want to go dancing, on the weekend. And it's also this celebration aspect. When I'm dancing by myself, sometimes I'm not dancing out of celebration.
Yeah, there's both sides to the dancing, right? It can bring us in a certain state, and it's also expression of a certain state. Because it's always a good indicator for myself. If I dance while making breakfast or making myself a coffee or doing something, it's always, I'm in a good state probably. Like, some things are going well right now. But we can also use it to get into another state. What I learned from you, a big learning I get from you, is that it is more about the feeling of dancing than how it looks. Can you say something to that? What does the feeling of dancing mean to you?
What is the feeling of dancing? This is the thing that I talk about all the time, and then it's very hard to define it. The feeling of dance is, I think it's the expression of dance in oneself. This unique feeling that arises in the specific situation, and that also becomes something more concrete and clear through time. So the more you do it, the more you practice dancing, the more this feeling of dance will become clear, like your individual feeling of dance. I think maybe so my hypothesis is that we all have an innate feeling for dancing. Just because dance is a form of expression that is very old. So it's not something like the work that I do with dance is like contemporary, because it's happening to this time of like 2026, and it has to do with my history and with the experiences that I've made. But it's also I'm building on I'm building my house on top of a huge mountain that was full of other houses, you know. I think this innate feeling of dance is something that you can then start to experience when you start dancing, when you start practicing, when you connect to a music, and then you feel how the music feels in your body. But also when you go out and then you observe the leaves moving, and then you feel like, I want to move like the leaves. And then you start to give some kind of voice for this feeling. And this voice is your voice. It's your feeling. But I think this is something very old. Like it's just part of us. And
It's like birds singing their song, or animals doing their mating dances or whatever, right? And we started to outsource it, or have this misconception that we have to be good at something to do it, instead of doing it because it's good for you and it's really natural to do it without caring how it looks.
Yeah, I think it's much more closer to what you just said with the bird singing. We are pregnant of possibilities and we're not aware of them. Yeah, so it's just, these things are like this potential, you know, it's there. And then some people will discover it or uncover it.
Yeah, 99.999% of us will and never have to do a living of dancing. So you can as well give a fuck about how it looks, right? And getting it right and all this kind of stuff, because it doesn't matter so much. You just do it.
Yeah.
So I always have the saying, you don't get a medal. Also, when I was doing this triathlon last year, I was reminding myself, okay, even like I won't win. I don't even want to win this thing. I can't win this thing. So I might as well have joy with it.
Yeah.
Right? Because what for?
Yeah, and then your reward, let's say, is your feeling.
Exactly.
So the reward is not that you won and you got the medal for your outcome, but it's just that you felt something.
And instead of having like somebody compliment you at the end of an hour of dancing for 10 seconds, you have an hour of a good time.
And that requires a change of perspective, because if your perspective is so outwards, is so like on what other people are going to say and what people are going to think, then of course you're going to keep looking for that reward. And if the reward doesn't come, then it's just going to be hard. But if you change the perspective to your, you know, you start playing the inside game. You know, it's inside also. And then I think, boom.
There's another thought I got from you, which I really love, because sometimes you're dancing and you find yourself repeating the same things, where you were then reminding us in this DLFC, in the dancing workshop, go search for what is interesting to you. Right? Spark your curiosity. What is interesting to you? If you find yourself like repeating all the time, you can try, and I do this all the time. Okay, how is it if I dance from my elbow now, or my leg, or my knee, or how do I connect my left ear with my right hip, and how does this feel now? To always find something that's interesting to me. That I also got from you.
Nice. Yeah, it's a big game, right? You can gamify it. You can just, it's very playful. It's not like a discipline, you know. It's not like how people have, usually they have these boxes of like dance categories, dance styles in their minds. Are you dancing salsa? Are you dancing this? Are you dancing that? But the thing is that these boxes, these different dance rhythms, they share their, like, I don't know how much percent, 97% of their DNA. You know, dances, they are not arising like exotic trees that have nothing to do with each other. They are connected. I don't even know why we dance. Like, in a way, I know it because I feel it. But cognitively speaking, it's like, it's the same, like, why is there a sky? Why are there stars? Like, we know it, but we don't know it.
And we can explain it, all the cardiovascular benefits, and it's good for Alzheimer and everything, but that's not the real reason. That's just our scientific worldview needing to find logical, rational explanations for non-rational experiences.
Yeah, and I think some people are going to start dancing because they need to do something for their cardiovascular system. But I think the great majority senses like it's somehow attracted to the mystery of dancing. like to this, there is something in there.
And something sacred, right? Because it is, I love the definition of sacred from Veggie, that something is sacred when it's inexhaustible. When it always pours out new things and new insight and new transformation. And that dance definitely is. What common misconceptions do you see people having about dancing in the movement bubble? When the people, what do you think is like some common threads which are, you think, misleading?
I think one that I already mentioned is the idea that it has to be loud and spectacular to be valid, to count as dancing. I think the other one is this like wanting to differentiate. This is ballet, this is hip hop, this is, like only focusing on on the differentiations between one discipline and the other, and instead of looking for the common threads that connect them. There is one thing that I still haven't phrased it enough, I think, so I don't know how it's gonna get out of my mind through my mouth. So when I entered this movement practice, general practice, and I started to realize how dance was being taught, it's much more detached from a history of a specific dance, but also the history of your own body. It's just something a bit more detached, like more general. Or like feeling like moving with the feeling of gravity, da-da-da-da-da. And I think this is what, it's like this very general, very detached from history. Dance was always very connected to the history of certain disciplines, like hip hop, like the Brazilian dance styles that I had. And the history, or like being connected to this specific dance style, is what gave me like feelings. I think the misconception is that you can completely detach dancing.
To take it out of its natural habitat and take it in a zoo, like an animal you look at and you do different tests with it, but it's not the real animal in the real world anymore.
Which creates for me a problem, because I actually enjoy finding ways to enter dancing that are detached from specific disciplines, because I think it can make it actually easier for people to access their own feeling of dance. So if I'm no, this is not salsa, this is not hip hop, this is da-da-da-da. On the other hand, I also appreciate a lot that there are like certain traditions, like the Western African tradition that I also used to practice when I was living in Brazil. This, for me, was like there was so much history in the movement. They were like, we're doing this with our foot because there is like this, it's like it represents a certain situation in their daily lives. So it was like this representing something, like there was a history behind it.
That you have the dance embedded in history and culture, and
Yeah.
where it came from makes it much more meaningful than to have it there as a blank thing or another thing to add to have your movement practice complete.
I think this is just one part of experiencing dance, is like traveling through these different histories and disciplines and realizing how much connection there are between them all. And at the same time, like for me, I decided that I don't want to focus on only one thing. I want to teach the mix. I like the mix, but still I know where I come from.
A lived contradiction.
Yes, exactly.
A lived paradox. And I think also the movement bubble sometimes tend to be male dominated. Then males which try to deconstruct and put things into systems and categorize it and deconstruct dance into certain moves, which misses a lot about the sensitivity, sensuality, and like you're losing the gestalt for the form,
Yeah.
So this is something I see happening in the movement community again and again. Now I have to practice my 5 minutes of dancing in this style, or I have to do now 2 minutes of this specific dance move. And it's like,
I see.
There is some value to that, but it's somehow missing the point in the big picture.
I also, one thing that comes to me is I don't know if it's a misconception, but it's something that was in the beginning weird, is that the sort of the kind of dance ideas that are usually taught in this movement scene, they felt for me very detached from feeling. You know, for me, like my again, where I come from, the things that I learned, they made my, let's say, my default dance be very energetic or more energetic, or, you know, more expressive, also with my face, you know, or like big, like taking up space moves with my arms, these kind of things, you know, not so clean and fluid and da 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 da, but yeah, more chaotic maybe, or just explosive, or yeah. So I realized that this was like, in the beginning, it was like, oh, this is a bit strange or different. Should I also teach these things? The thing that I like to share the most is really this joyful state.
Let's make a big point for joy here. Joy is not just something that is nice on the side, but joy is a really powerful state that helps you to connect more and builds your curiosity. It's a really thriving state, which you can really aspire to be in as much as possible.
Yeah.
Just a nice bonus, but it's really benefiting not just you, and it's not just a selfish thing, but it's benefiting also all of your surrounding.
Finding like your way of expressing this joy, you know, as a woman, but in general, does it come with a smile in your face, or does it come with a smile in your belly? Does, like, what's the expression of it?
As a male, it was really hard for me to also find role models of where my body and my dance could go to, because I always just have female teachers most of the time. And then it was really amazing last winter when my good friend and dance teacher Kata teach with a friend of her, which was my size and also my weight, and he was also a professional dancer, to see how this quality of like contemporary dance in a professional sense can feel in a male body and looks like. That was really interesting to me. And it was so nice to touch him also while dancing, and not just to see it, but also to feel what the quality of his tissue is like, and to, this is how the tissue looks like if you do this a lot. And then you have some blueprint you can also aspire to, or get a sense of, this is where it can go. And then you can start to embody it more and more too, because before you had no idea.
Yeah.
What transformations do you see people go through who work with you?
The discovering their own resourcefulness. When
Do you have an example?
Yeah, so I have a student of mine comes to mind, and she was having a hard time to start dancing, so she would quit a lot the practice. So she would go for like a week of dancing every day, or almost every day, and then she would quit. She would run out of ideas, you know, she would just feel overwhelmed by her own emotions. And I realized that the more we worked with her own state, so, you know, to think of like, instead of I want to change my state, I start with the state I am in, the more she would realize that she has resources already in herself, in her states, in the thing that she actually wanted to put away, you know, to start her dance. So, yeah, I think this realization that your creativity is not attached to someone else, but to a state of like presence to where you are. Of course, having something to start with, some material. I think maybe one of the things that people feedback me the most is that they have now something to work with. They can start somewhere, and then they keep practicing those things, and then it just takes them into a journey, I think. My pattern is to be a sort of an initiator. You know, I think because I think I have more that kind of energy also. Like this enthusiasm is also important for the beginning. And let's say my maybe defaults kind of what I can contribute is helping with the sparks, is finding what is joyful, helping for people to notice that they can find these things in themselves also.
And often in the beginning, if you just tell people, no dance, it's way too, there's no constraints to that and no affordances.
Yeah.
But if you, like you do, and you have is it still possible to buy it, by the way, the Dance More Than You Talk program?
No, but I have made a new one.
Oh.
And it's actually already done and edited and stuff, but I still, still not selling it. But soon, again. It's a bit of a different style, but yeah.
A genius thing. And I love the name so much.
Yeah.
I'm also a bit jealous about the name because it's epic.
About the Dance More Than You Talk name?
Yeah, it's epic. The name is just perfect.
Nice.
And is it, again, because when I did it the first time, it's 30 days of 5 minutes a day dancing with one idea every day. So it's really doable. And one song recommendation for every day. And I think I just got today 12 or so, and that was already enough. And it feels endless, the possibilities I have already with those 12 days.
Yeah, that's the resourcefulness. Like, okay, no, I don't even need anymore.
And what would you recommend people who are now super inspired after hearing us talking about dance to start with, to dance more in their life?
Yeah, what should I recommend? I think if people are listening to this podcast and they find this topic interesting, I am assuming that they have some kind of access already to dance or some curiosity. Maybe something that they used to do when they were kids, or like some kind of music style that they like to listen. So I would start with that. Something that is very easy, accessible. For a lot of people, it has to do with music, but it doesn't have to. It could be also going to a class, you know, getting guidance. I wrote recently a post on Instagram where I say if I had only 1 hour a day to do some kind of a creative movement practice, what would I do? And I think I would, I think I say this, like one of the things is just find something that you already enjoy. I think the other thing is, look for movement sparks, you know, like look for some constraint, some structure, some little prompt, some idea, an image, a rule. And I think another thing, so besides having this constraint and finding something that you enjoy, I think the easiest way maybe it's to do this with other people. So having a group or having a person, so because this takes you to the space, you know, and even between two people there is a space that gets created. So if you're not, you know, you don't feel that confident, enthusiastic, the other person can maybe hold you, hype you up, or
take you with.
Yeah, take you in the journey, and then you can do the same for the other person. So I think this is the probably the easiest way is to have a partner, be it a group or a person, a class. Yeah.
Tell me more about the workshop. What is it? When is it going to be? What is it about?
The workshop, it's called Start with Joy. And it's 3 days, it's online, it's 3 days. And in these 3 days, I want to actually, because when I give workshops online and dance challenges, I'm always dancing and I want to talk also. So I'm done with this only dancing thing. I want to go a little deeper because for me, the material that I share, they came from experience, but it also came from realizing things about how people start dancing or how resistance show up in people's lives, like overthinking, feeling embarrassed, feeling self-conscious. So it's going to be 3 days where I want to share ideas or a bit of a background on why is it that people feel like this. That's my own observations. And then share 7 concrete sparks, like ingredients. I have this landscape of the practice, which is a bit my framework, and mostly I'm focusing on dance, which is one part of the landscape, but another part of the landscape would be like climbing trees or doing parkour, like stuff where I'm relating to something external, or even like going for a walk, doing things that are like sort of endurance related, going for a walk, running, skipping. These are all part of the creative landscape for me. Yeah, so I want to share, like 7 concrete stuff, and also talk about what, because if you say you want to start, either it's because you stopped, you stopped at some point, or it's because you have some kind of curiosity already, but you feel blocked. So people either want to start again, or they want to start, but they feel blocked. So there are variations of resistances, and I want to talk about that. And as a way to counter resistance, I want to introduce people to these ideas of how to start moving with joy.
That sounds really lovely. So how do people get to know when it starts, and how can they sign up? Is Instagram or website? What is the best way?
The best way is Instagram, because I'm doing a lot of stuff over Instagram right now, but in general on my website, marianahilgert.com. There is also
the same Instagram handle, right?
Instagram handle is at ma.hilgert. Ma used to be my nickname in Brazil. I think this is when I created. So a lot of people call me Ma.
And you have another program people could join, and that is the Creative Body that is ongoing, right?
Yeah, the Creative Body is my ongoing creative movement program. And this is where I not only work with movement sparks, so this is where we go into like how to start a practice, but it's really where I go into this flame part, how to feed the practice. So it can become something that is part of your life in a very present way. Not only the thing that you do on the weekend when you go out dancing, but something that is just part of your life.
That's super nice. And it's so nice. I love the differentiation of like how to spark and how to start something, and how to keep something going, and how to feed the flame, because those are 2 totally different games.
Yeah.
They need totally different approaches and totally different tools also.
And this is also it just came to me actually last week. It's a very fresh metaphor, because I was thinking about this workshop that I want to give, and I was thinking about names and ideas, and then I remember this, like the situation of making fire that we both went through, and how like these stages they are completely different, and they require different things also, and it's just like, and there's a lot of resistance. Like it's hard to start, so hard to start a fire. Like even finding this little ember, and then so I just realized, like, I think it's a good image also. Even if people have never made fire, it's something that I experience. So I can talk about this metaphor with some feeling of like, I know what it feels like.
Yeah, I had the same realization in the last year. Getting into a relationship is a totally different game than staying in a relationship. And evolving that relationship, right? The skills that bring you in there doesn't necessarily help you to develop and grow once you're in there.
That's so true.
So, yeah. I got 2 last questions for the end.
Okay.
Honestly, both of them are big enough to go for another half an hour, but those are 2 questions I wanted to ask every guest because I find them so fascinating. First one is, how do you relax?
So I have like very basic go-to stuff that I do. Going for a walk with my dog without a phone.
Big one.
Yeah, big one. Drinking a tea that I used to drink back in Brazil. It's like a matcha, which is not really relaxing. But drinking this with my partner outside or on the couch, it's very, very, very relaxing for me. Doing nothing, lying down, sitting. This is probably the most classical one as well.
Do you want to share your quote from that?
Yeah, when you do nothing, it doesn't mean that nothing is happening.
I love that one.
Yeah, I think things that are like in a way that bring me in connection to, someone else, like my dog or my partner. They help me to relax. So I think I'm a believer of like co-regulation. But also that like doing nothing and just really going into this like, wow, my thoughts are going crazy. And because I've done this enough, I know that it's going to change. So in the beginning, it's so uncomfortable. So, going through that phase and then,
And it doesn't stop being uncomfortable.
no, true.
Just learn that it will pass.
And I think also like from dancing, I think the seaweed dance is one of the things that one of the little dance sparks that help me to relax. Have you been in a workshop where I taught the seaweed dance?
I think so.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I will need to come again.
Yeah, there is also, if people want to know what that is, there is also I have a free tutorial. So they can write me on Instagram.
And last question, what is one of your favorite questions right now, or what you think is a question people should ask themselves more?
How to keep going when life gets messy, when the rhythm changes. This is an ongoing question, probably one of my favorite ones, because it gave me a lot of possible, it's a sacred question, inexhaustible. Yeah. How do I keep going?
And there I got another beautiful image of you. I don't know if you remember it, but when we once talked about it, we talked about the power of a practice, and that sometimes we tend to think a practice needs to be linear or is this like straight line, but that the practice is more like the roots of a tree, and sometimes they go to grow bigger and sometimes they go thinner depending on the like environment they're in right now, and sometimes there's a stone in the way and then there needs to be found a way around the stone. But it's this thought about how to keep going, and even if it's messy and if it's changing, how to keep going. That's a beautiful question.
Yeah, and also having a place to go back to when things change. I think this is for me the beautiful, the power of having a practice or having this practice perspective. Is because when you have your things that you're doing and you like to do, and then you get sick or something else happens, you have a place to go back to. And the more you do it, the more this place becomes like clear, the walls become clear, the door, it's just very,
Yeah, and if everything is easy and you're joyful and everything, then, and if you're not hurt and don't have many struggles, it's always easy. But what do you fall back to when things get hard?
And I mean, the nature of rhythm is change, So even if you have a rhythm, like if you think you have a rhythm, I am going to the gym every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, it's going to change because that's the nature of it. Not stay the same. So how do I keep going with, how do I adapt? How do I find creative solutions to the things that seem to be interruptions in my rhythm, but they are just the nature of things.
Beautiful, Mariana. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Simon.
Any last words from your here?
Yeah, it was very, very nice to have this space to reflect with you, have such a nice sparring partner to talk to.
That was so lovely, and I can really recommend to everybody listening, check out Mariana's work and go to her workshops and join it, because it was really, really influencing my life a lot, those pictures and this approach. And thank you, Mariana.
Thanks, Simon. Thank you, everyone, for listening.
I really invite you now to put on your favorite music and go for 5 minutes of dancing. Search for that feeling of dancing and enjoy it. If you liked the episode, it helps a lot if you subscribe or send it to somebody who would also enjoy it. And then hopefully hear you again for the next episode. Bye. Stay wild, stay true. Simon.